Hey, welcome back to Year of the Book, where we are documenting our writing journey and all the bumps along the way. And let me tell you this, I am a little bit behind, disorganized, slightly anxious about my writing tonight. And that is largely because I didn't write last week. And then, in the past few weeks before that, there were other weeks and days where I didn't manage to get my usual writing in, but like my ideas didn't stop, and my to-do list didn't stop. So I'm still having all these things churning through my head, but I didn't manage to sort of progress the past couple of weeks that much. Last week had a kind of a rough couple of days mental health wise, and I wasn't up to writing. And then later on in the week, I felt good and I was like really excited to start writing. And then we had a medical event in our house. Not an emergency, everybody is fine. But for that evening, it needed my attention. So that means that tonight I am absolutely gagging to start writing and get back to my stories. However, there is something that's weighing on my mind, and I know it will continue to weigh on my mind unless I do it first, and that is getting my shit together writing wise. What do I mean by that? Not actually getting my shit together, of course. It's not going to happen. No, what I mean is that I need to get a bit organized with my stories. So what I want to do tonight, this might be the only thing I get done tonight, we'll see. What I want to do tonight is do a bit of an audit of my short stories, make a list and organize it by what each story requires doing, to it. Does that make sense? Anyway. So basically, I have a set of stories. I'm not sure how many I have. And they're all at different stages of completion. So some have already been submitted and I'm waiting to hear back, whatever. Right through to like an idea of a story, which doesn't yet exist beyond a couple of bullet points. And everything in between. And the reason I want to get organised is because it is getting a bit chaotic. Well, it's always chaotic up here. But I am starting to sort of lose track of my stories and what I've done and so on. And I want to get organised with them because there are a couple of deadlines for anthology calls and contests and stuff coming up that I want to enter specific stories in, and they're not ready yet. So I want to do this audit to kind of like a stock check of where I am right now and what needs to be done in the next few months. So I'm hoping that that's not going to take up all of my writing evening, but we'll see. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to just create a tab in my submissions tracker Excel so that I don't have to start like another document because I don't like doing that. So I'm just going to do it in there. It's going to be pretty basic. And once I've put it together, I'll talk you through how I've organized it in case that's helpful for you. If you are a short story author, I would love to know how you deal with having lots of different stories on the go at the same time. Do you have like a list? Are you keeping track of things, or are you just neurotypical and you're just able to organize your thoughts? I'd love to hear about it, so let me know in the comments. But I'm going to crack on with it and then I'll come back and tell you what I've done. Okay, so that didn't take very long, maybe less than 10 minutes, but incredibly useful exercise because it's the first time that I have seen all my stories laid out like this in terms of the to-do list that I have in my head for them and in terms of what stage of completion they're at. I tried to make a list like this before, and for some reason I organized it in a really non-intuitive way. And it was not helpful at all. But this is really helpful. So I'm going to talk you through the different stages that I've included, and I'll also just put a list up on the screen. I can see like a hair on my face. Hair. There it is. I'll also put it up on the screen so you can have a look at it. And what I've done is this. So the first stage is stories that are unwritten or they're in the planning stage. Okay, and I've got 2 stories here. One is an idea that I'm still thinking about, and I have a few bullet points of what I want that story to be like. And one is a piece that I actually submitted as like a micro flash fiction piece, and it was 250 words long. And I think that there might be potential in that 250 words to turn it into a slightly longer short story. So I've put that one in there as well. So there's 2 there. Then I've got first draft needs finishing. Okay, so these are stories that I've started writing the first draft, but I haven't finished it. I've only got one in there, and that is the story about the cleaner in a psychiatric hospital in the 1970s. So if you've been watching for a while, you might remember me talking about that story. If you haven't, don't worry about it because I haven't finished it yet. Basically, I was writing this story, writing the first draft, when I hit burnout related to work, and it kind of stalled my writing. And I felt in that moment, I felt like I just sort of stalled on this story and I couldn't do it. I felt like I was kind of putting pressure and demands on myself in different ways. And that made me need to just put that story to one side. I also kind of wasn't happy with how I was writing it, and I just was like, I just needed to abandon it. However, I will come back to it when I'm ready. So that first draft needs finishing. Next category, well, the next stage rather, is requiring a full rewrite. So these are stories that there is a full first draft. However, the full first draft was written several years ago, right? Before I started my writing journey this year. These were stories that I'd written in a sort of ad hoc way over the past 10 years. So they are finished as such, but I'll be honest with you, I'd actually forgotten about them in the past couple of months. And there's 4 of them. And I have not decided exactly what's going to happen to them. So that's why they're listed under full rewrite. Now, it may be a full rewrite. It may just be these stories are not going anywhere. So it may just be that once I review these stories, I decide that they're sort of not going to go anywhere. And I'll just leave them, and I'm okay with that. There's 4 of those, so I need to think about that. The next stage is first edits. So this means, hi Noodle, that I've completed the first draft, and often after finishing the first draft, I've had a quick read through, corrected a few small things, but I haven't done a proper round of editing on it yet. So I've just got one story in this category at the moment, and it is one that I want to get to in September because I want to submit it to a ghost story competition, and the deadline for that is at the start of October. So I do want to get to that one in September. And then the next stage is developmental edits. And I've got 2 stories in here. And how I'm thinking about developmental edits is these 2 stories have already been edited. Both been edited at least a couple of times. But I've decided that they require some more in-depth reworking, and that means slightly different things for each of these 2 stories. So one of these stories is the villa story, which again, if you've not been watching for a while, this is novelette length, and it's currently 13,500 words. and I would like to extend that to novella length. And what I need to do for that is, because it's slightly loud. Okay, so unfortunately, when Noodle knocked over my tripod, it also stopped recording. I didn't realize. So I, of course, continued to talk for about 10 minutes. And that means that I didn't finish the video. So I'm going to try and get through the rest of this quickly for you before I start work today. So we were on the developmental edit stage, and I said I had 2 stories in that stage. One was The Villa, and then the second one is a short horror story that I talked about a couple of weeks ago that I already submitted, and it got rejected quite quickly. And when I looked back at it again, I realized that probably it wasn't ready to be submitted. I was kind of really keen to get through it and get it out there. But I now know that I need to do more work in terms of like the interiority and the character development. So that's why it's gone back into developmental edits. Next up, we've got minor or final edits. So there's just one story sitting in here at the moment. And that is a story that it's already had 1 or 2 rounds of editing. It's just a short one, around 3,000 words, but it hasn't had like a final go or final polishing. So that needs doing. Then next category we've got is ready for submission. So currently I have nothing in this phase. So this is stories that I'm completely happy with, they're completely done, and they're ready to be submitted somewhere. And often I'm waiting for the right call or a submission window to open so I can send them to the best possible outlet. So nothing in there at the moment. And then next is stories that are out for submission. So I've got 4 stories in here at the moment. They're all out with various, I think we've got a couple with magazines and a couple with anthology calls. And what I've also noted here is which stories are simultaneous submissions. So 2 of them are, and that means that I've sent the same story to multiple publications when that's allowed. Make sure you always check. And 2 have only gone to 1 publication for now. So 4 there. They're just hanging out there, just waiting for responses. Next up, we've got accepted for publication. As you know, well, you might not know, as you know, I've had 1 piece accepted so far of my writing. So again, that's just hanging out, waiting to get published. I won't do any further work on it, obviously. And then we've got 2 rejection-related categories. So first is rejected and ready to be reviewed. So I have 1 story in here at the moment. It's a story that has been rejected twice already. And then this week, my partner sent me an email saying, oh, here's that story with my notes and corrections. And I was like, oh, that story has already been submitted and rejected. And I realised that I haven't looked at his edits yet, but there's probably a couple of mistakes in there, things that I had missed, which it's really embarrassing to think that you've sent out your work and you might have missed a few mistakes, but I'm sure everybody does it. And that means that before I send that story anywhere else, I need to go back through it. There are also cases where once a story has been rejected, I sometimes make some more substantial tweaks before sending it back out. And that usually includes things like changing the last line or the first paragraph. Like I've noticed in some of my stories, they start a bit slow. And, you know, you can't be doing with a short story. You've got to get right into it, okay? So sometimes I've tweaked that after it's been rejected once before I send it somewhere else. Or sometimes the last lines, like, I felt like some of my last lines were a bit sort of cliche and I just wanted to change them, basically. So those are a couple of reasons why you might want to review a story after it's been rejected and you want to send it somewhere else. And then the final category is rejected and ready to be resubmitted. So if you needed to review it, you've already done that. It's sitting there, it's hanging out, it's ready to go somewhere. This is different from ready for submission because these are stories that have already been out and you're going to send them out again. So I consider those as slightly different stages. So that is it. There are 10 stages in there. I don't know, I held up 5. There are 10 stages in there, and using these 10 stages helped me with this auditing exercise, and it was really useful for a couple of reasons. The first reason is it is the first time that I've seen all my stories laid out like this in terms of where they're all at, and that was really helpful for me. Firstly, it gives you a sense of achievement, seeing everything that you've done as well as the things that you need to do, because I do tend to think and get overwhelmed with the amount of things that I feel like I need to do, and I'm very easily forgetting the things that I've already done. So it's really nice to just see both of those things together in a holistic way. And the second thing that it's been really useful for so far is it allows me to see which stories or which tasks are kind of low-hanging fruit, which I'm going to be able to do relatively quickly, and which are going to require more depth and more time. And that will help with my planning and organization. But it also helps for those evenings, those weeks, when I'm overwhelmed, stressed, when I want to do some writing, but I struggle to get going. If I can look at this and see, okay, there's a story here, minor or final edits, I'm more likely to be able to do my writing session and focus on something like that. And then when there's something, like the developmental edits or full rewrites that require more time, I can plan a little bit better for that. So it's really helpful in that respect. And this is what I did last night. So I had one story in the minor or final edits, and because it was already partway through the evening, it was already getting a bit late, I decided to go for that because I knew that I'd be able to complete that final edit in the rest of the evening, and that story's now been moved out of that category and it's ready for submission. So it was a really useful exercise for me. I hope that that might be helpful for you if you're a short story author and if you're working on multiple stories at a time, or if as a writer you struggle to stay and feel organized and on top of things. I like working on many different stories at once, but the more that I do, the more overwhelmed I start to feel sometimes because I kind of can't keep track of what I'm doing. So this is a very simple way of helping me to feel like I know what's going on. I'm going to drop those different phases in the description if you're interested, if you think it might be helpful. And let me know if you are a short story author. How do you do this? How do you organize yourself? How do you plan and prioritize what you want to work on? And how do you keep track of everything? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.